Today I want to talk about the war on language because it's a symptom of the war on the West. In the headlines, it's a war on Israel, but actually underneath, it's a war on the West. And the symptom is the war on language. If you could just corrupt the language so it's meaningless, all you're left with is propaganda.
Simcha Sessions, out-of-the-box insights into history, religion, and politics.
On October 8th, what happened after the massacre of Jews, Israelis, by Hamas in southern Israel, what happened the next day is a war against language. Yes, it's a war against Israel. Yes, it's a war against Jews, but it's also a war against language. Why? Because it's a war against the West. What do I mean? The word genocide. The word genocide has crept into parliaments, into international criminal courts. Israel's guilty of genocide. Do you know what genocide is? Can somebody look it up in a dictionary? It's the purposeful attempt to wipe out a people based on ethnicity or religion. Is that what's happening to the Palestinians? No, that's a lie. When you have a genocide, the numbers go down in population. The Palestinian population has gone up since the Jews have arrived back to the Middle East. Do you know what a genocide is? A genocide is what, between 1915 and 1917, the Turks did to the Armenians. They killed 1.5 million Armenians, and to this day, while lecturing Israel on morality, they have not admitted, no restitution, no sense of guilt, no apology, that they murdered 1.5 million Armenians. That's genocide. Ask an Armenian. What the Sudanese did in Darfur in the 70s, when they killed 300,000 black people because they're not Arabs, that's genocide. What the Hutus did to the Tutsis when they killed over 1 million in Rwanda, that's genocide. What the Europeans, headed by the Nazis in Germany, did to the Jews when they murdered 6 million, 1 million of which were children, that's genocide. Even according to terrorist statistics, Hamas is a terrorist organization, but by virtue of its label by the State Department, by the RCMP in Canada, it's a terrorist organization. Since when do journalists believe stats supplied by terrorists? I don't. Not by Al-Qaeda, not by ISIS, not by Hamas. They claim, the terrorists, 55,000 people dead, Palestinians. Let's say they're only lying by 20%. Let's say there's 40,000 dead Palestinians. And let's say the Israelis are really bad shots and half of them are not terrorists. Half of them are Hamas members and half of them are not. That's 20,000, sadly, dead Palestinians as collateral damage in a war that Hamas initiated. But 20,000 is not 6 million. It's not 1 million. In Nigeria, when the Igbo tried to separate themselves and create a country, Biafra, the Nigerians murdered 3 million. That's genocide. Famine, well, there's a famine going on now. Have any of the people that shout famine seen a famine? I have. I've been in refugee camps. I've reported from them and I've filmed. Remember Live Aid, when Ethiopians were dying and the rock and roll community got together and sang We Are the World and raised nobly money for the starving Ethiopians? 1 million of them died before people noticed. That's famine. The Chinese, during the Beetle era, 59 to 62 around, they orchestrated a famine against their own people in which 45 million people died. That's famine. And these are the people lecturing Israel? It's a made-up famine. There's hunger, to be sure, but there's no famine. Well, you know, it's all perpetrated by those white neo-colonial Jews. Really? Jews are all white? You bunch of racists who say that. Jews are white and there's no shame in it, but Jews come in multicolors. There's almost 200,000 Ethiopians in Israel. Black people from Ethiopia. A third of the Jewish population of Israel is from Arab lands, from Morocco and Algeria and Iraq and Yemen. They're as colorful as the Arabs. Really? 20% of the Israeli population is Arab. Where's the white colonialism? Do you know what a colony is? A colony is an extension of a mother country. New England is was an extension of England. New France, which is now called Quebec, was an extension of France. The Jews, they came back to where they were indigenous because everybody else threw them out. They came as refugees, not as extension of a colonial power. In fact, they kicked the British out of here during the so-called Mandate. The British colonialists, and they never forgave the Jews, never forgave Israel, that's why they continue to lecture. The British colonialists were kicked out of the Middle East by the Jews. So where is neocolonialism? It's a lie. Apartheid, a lie. But by corrupting all these words, what happens is an assault on language. And an assault on language, besides being an assault on Israel and on Jews, it's an assault on the truth. When no word means anything anymore, the victim is truth. And when the truth dies, the West will follow suit. Wake up, West. If you like the out-of-the-box thoughts that I've been sharing with you, like and subscribe, because I'll be back with some more ideas.